Hello, everyone. Greetings. You are welcome to the JMA Connections. This 21st day of the month of April 2026. So we're 9 days away from the end of this month. And when the month is gone, we're engaging the 5th month of the year. That tells you that the year is running pretty fast. And so I'd like to extend hearty regards to the people of Moyoka, the people of Moyoka, because that's a very active zone. I was just reading before I came into onto this platform to begin this communication that there were exchanges between the freedom fighters, the unity warriors of the Southern Cameroons, and the soldiers of La République du Cameroon. And reports indicated that the shooting lasted well over 4 hours. And thus far, I don't know exactly what has really happened. We'll be waiting to get details of what has happened in Moyoka, that is still in Fako County. And I also saw that something happened to in Benakuma, that a talk from La République du Cameroon, one of the terrorists sent by the Yaoundé regime to go bring pain, tears, and tribulations on our people, also fell in Benakuma. And so you notice that, shortly after the Pope left, hostilities have definitely resumed. And so the people of the Southern Cameroons continue to be resolute in their quest for freedom. But at the same time, most importantly too, the civil society immediately resumed the ghost towns yesterday, Monday, the 20th of April, and I had the opportunity to exchange with a lot of people on the ground, and they said they were surprised that some people were surprised that the ghost towns resumed, because they said they felt that the passage of the Pope meant that peace had returned, and that the mobilization, the excitement, and everything around the Pope's visit meant that life was going to return to normal. But of course, that is not to be. And I heard someone say from Bamenda that he hoped that the colonial regime in Yaoundé would not go to the airport in Bafut. That airport is between Bafut and Mancon, to dismantle everything that they had installed prior to the Pope's arrival, because they definitely were simply showing face for the Pope's visit. Because, by the way, how many aircraft really do land at that airport? And when I listened to that, I was like, oh my goodness, this is so serious. One of the things that the younger generation of Southern Cameroonians are not aware of is that the Southern Cameroons had international airports, especially the airport in Tico. The Tico airport was an international airport right up to 1961. Queen Elizabeth and other international dignitaries that visited in the Southern Cameroons usually landed at the Tico International Airport. All the delegation members that left the Southern Cameroons to the United Nations for any forms of negotiations or meetings flew off from the Tico International Airport. But unfortunately, As soon as we got into some kind of stupid joining with La République du Cameroon, all they decided to do was start to dismantle everything that gave us independence. First, they dismantled PWD and made sure that all the equipment that were with the Public Works Department that enabled the people to maintain roads timely. The people had a mastery of how the seasons operate, and they maintained the roads timely at all times to ensure that there was easy circulation even during the rainy seasons on roads that were not necessarily tarred. But they carted all that equipment to Yaoundé because they wanted our people to request from Yaoundé anytime they needed to maintain roads. Dependency. At the same time, they also ensured that they shut down the Tico International Airport for one peculiar reason. The reason they did that was that they suspected that a time like this one could come, and we will find ourselves flying directly into our territory and flying directly out of our territory. They needed us to depend on having to pass at all costs through their territory before getting into our territory. That is where we find ourselves now. The only entry route into the southern Cameroons by air will be only through Yaoundé or Douala, all in La République du Cameroon, hampering us and creating that dependency. That is in Fako. I'm saying this because I know that my friend Belamoki sometimes forgets some of those facts. I mean Belamoki, aka Ngaringa, when he talks about the people we don't like, he forgets this fact that it is not the people he doesn't like who decided to shut down the Tico Airport, the Tico International Airport. I heard recently they made a lot of noise. Oh, they wanted to rehabilitate the Tico International Airport. They said they had voted a budget, they had done this, they had done that, and all whatnot. In the end, what do we have there? Nothing. It's the same thing with sea navigation. The Tico port was also functional, just like the one in Limbe. What did they do? They made sure they blocked all attempts to construct seaports, deep sea port. Limbe is a natural deep sea port. It did not need an air force like the one in Douala. They don't need a lot of dredging all the time like the one in Douala. But they made sure that they have frustrated every single attempt to have a seaport constructed in the southern Cameroons. The reason is simple. We are a very serious business community. We are people who are very free-minded, and we are people who are so self-reliant. You recall, I had pointed out on this platform, this is not the subject matter of the discussion. I'm just passing through this to get into what we're talking about. I had mentioned on this platform that statistics at the Department of Customs in Douala indicate that if the people of the southern Cameroons stop shipping through the Douala seaport, they were going to lose revenue well over 40%. Well over 40%. At some point, some were even optimistic to take it up to 63%. But information I got from within the port authorities and from within the Directorate General of Customs indicated that much, that we're going to lose about 40 to 43% of the revenue. And so they knew that they needed to make sure that we cannot also send containers straight into the southern Cameroons. Those containers must pass through La République du Cameroon. That's why they diverted the project for the construction of the Limbe Deep Sea Port to carry it to Kridi. You know exactly what happened with Sonara. I don't need to get into that. I know prior to the recent elections, to the October 12, 2025 presidential election, what did they do? They claimed that they were launching a project to construct the Limbe DC port on the build, operate, and transfer basis, the BOT basis. And then they actually made a lot of noise about how this was going to happen, but suddenly they withdrew from the whole thing. They sent out contrary paperwork, and that has died a natural death again until today. That spirit of dependency, if it doesn't prick your mind that this is exactly how these people see us, that we have to be permanently dependent on them because they fear that if they allow us to be independent, if they allow us to have things happening, if they allow us to manage our own affairs, we will become difficult for them to manipulate, become difficult for them to maintain in slavery and servitude. This is the foundation of this liberation movement. This is why we are fighting. And the ghost towns, the Monday ghost towns have been around for over 9 years today. And the people understand that this is the civilian form of civil disobedience. This is a civilian approach to fighting this for freedom. And this is recognized everywhere in the world. Someone came from somewhere. First of all, started by telling people the United Nations is available. We just need to launch a case and they will give us freedom. Then turned around, played around, and now they got exactly to where they needed to get to. Lure the people, bring them closer, and then start telling them those inanities that you don't want to hear. That's why I heard them suddenly came up with some 21 points on why the Monday ghost towns need to stop. This is how you know them. Because when they turn around, they finally tell us exactly what their motives had been all the while. Anyway, that said, I was coming to some of the issues that I raised in my video of yesterday concerning the Pope's visit. And I said that Yaoundé has not been particularly happy. Although they decided not to react officially to a lot of the strong statements that the Pope made, they at least had surrogates who still stuck out their heads to say one or two things to demonstrate to the Pope that they were unhappy with exactly what happened. And you can understand their unhappiness. Because I followed a report by one French media outlet indicating that Cameroon spent a whopping 10 billion CFA francs for the Pope's visit. I say a whopping 10 billion CFA francs for the Pope's visit. I'll come to that. But let's begin with this statement by Mwen. They call him Mwen, Matthias, Eric Matthias Onangini, or Matthias Eric Onangini, or Matthias Onangini Eric, anyone you want to call, Mwen. So Mwen said on a TV program in Yaoundé, he said, la matrice génétique de la locution pontificale est marquée par les caractéristiques d'une posture coloniale aux allures d'ingérence fantomatique fondée sur la prédominance jupitérienne, d'une conception erronée de l'architecture juridico-politico-sociale aux antipodes de la réalité du système rationalisé camerounais. I'm sure you are listening to that friend say, oh my goodness, what words? All what he was saying is that the Pope, in a lot of his speeches, adopted a colonial posture. Did you hear that? I'm simplifying it. He says the Pope, in his speeches, in his pronouncements, adopted a colonial posture, one of dishing out lessons to a sovereign country that really has its own rationale and has its own approach to managing its affairs. This excerpt is from a broader declaration he made, at which he said Cameroon has no lessons to receive from the Vatican, and that the Pope could keep his gratuitous lectures on governance, on corruption, and on human rights and the likes. That's what he says. La matrice génétrice de la locution pontificale est marquée par les caractéristiques d'une posture coloniale. That they adopted a colonial posture on which they believe that everything that they do is correct and everything that the people of Cameroon do is wrong. There's a posture of standing out there and dishing out lessons to them as if they depended on anyone. And he stopped somewhere where he pointed out that Cameroon was a sovereign state and had the right to decide whatever they want to do, whenever and however they want to do it. They do not have lessons to receive from anybody. They do not expect anybody to dish out to them any lectures on the way they have to run their society. Although he was not speaking in any governmental capacity, of course, you know that he is a rector at the University of Yaoundé too. And so you would expect, of course. So he cannot be talking from, from the streets. He's not talking from the streets. So as a rector at the University of Yaoundé too, You understand, therefore, that he may not say he's speaking on behalf of the government, but he has generally taken the side of the government lately. There was a time that he behaved just like some people come into our liberation movement and behave and play as if they are with us, play as if they are against the system, play as if they're also frustrated at what is happening. But as soon as they begin getting exactly what they want, you see the language changes. And of course, Mwen made a 360-degree turn. I was with Nyih Richard, a very good friend. Nyih Richard of, the civil society organizations. I guess my friend Nyih Richard should be somewhere in Massachusetts, in the United States of America, right now in Boston. And of course, we sat together with Mwen at an anniversary of the Social Democratic Front, where we were invited to present papers. And Matthias Eric Onangini was an invitee of the SDF because at the time he was seen as someone who was so frustrated with the way, with the level of nepotism in the country, with the level of corruption, with the level of high-handedness, with the horrible kind of governance, and then with the, with the dismal level of economic development. But he knew exactly what he was doing. And people were like, he's actually opposing a party to which his father belonged. That was because his father was in the court. Once his father was appointed at the Constitutional Council, of course, Eric Matthias Onangini switched sides. And they started particularly when the Southern Cameroon's questions came on. You recall? He became one of those who treated the people of the Southern Cameroon with all kinds of horrible words. This is what he had to say with the visit of the Pope. And I followed, and another one of them say they spent a lot of money, huge sums of money, to receive the Pope, only for the Pope to arrive and not even for 1 second, show support to the regime. I talked to some of those young people who told me they were so dismayed that the Pope did not move to where Paul Biya was sitting with Chantal to offer him communion himself. Can you imagine that? They expected the Pope to leave the altar and walk down to King Paul Biya to give him communion, because Paul Biya is so tired, so finished, that he could not try to leave from where he was to walk to the altar to receive communion from the Pope, because there will be no way that cameras across the world will not capture that movement. And you know, they have been doing everything to hide Biya's movements on account of his age. Because when they tell you that he's 93 years old, would align with Zumanto, that he is far older than that. And so they said they were disappointed that the Pope did not give communion to Paul Biya himself. And at the same time, Chantal Biya wanted the Pope to go baptize her granddaughter. And when the Pope did not have time for that, it was another point of bitterness. I understand. No one said even Ferdinand Gongo felt so frustrated that they had to spend a lot and offered the Pope, very expensive gifts. Yet, he could not do some of those favors that they believed they had obtained from previous popes. Like John Paul II, that, baptized Brenda Biya. See what Brenda is. So, I was also looking at this correspondence. This correspondence that made me laugh a lot. This was a correspondence dated the 27th of March 2026, and it was from the Minister of State, Secretary General at the Presidency of the Republic, to Sonamin, what they call Directeur Général de la Société Nationale des Mines. That's the mining company. And the subject matter was mise à disposition d'un stock d'or, that is, put at the disposal of the presidency of a stock of gold. And he said, Monsieur le Directeur Général, dans le cadre de la mise en œuvre des très hautes instructions du chef de l'État relative à la confection d'un cadeau destiné à un hôte de marque, j'ai l'honneur de vous demander de bien vouloir mettre 1,5 kg d'or, 1.5 kg of gold, à la disposition du secrétariat général de la présidence de la République. Urgence particulièrement signalée. that would, as a matter of emergency, make available 1.5 kilogram of gold, 1.5 kilograms of gold to the Secretariat General of the Presidency, because they have to use it to fabricate or to produce a present for a guest, a very important guest that was knocking at the doors. And of course, this was prior to the arrival of the Pope in April. And so everybody knew that was it was in relation to the Pope's visit. So 1.5 kilograms of gold is estimated on the market today at $231,000. $231,000. That's for the gift, for them to prepare a gift to the Pope. $231,000. And if you convert $231,000 into CFA, just use the exchange rate as of today, because the exchange rate as of today for the local ones that actually go back to Cameroon will be about 545 CFA francs for $1. So $100,000 will be 54 million CFA. Just call it 55 million. Another 100, another 55 million. That's 110 million. Then convert 31,000. You see, the total will be getting to about 125 million CFA for one gift to be handed to the Pope. That is why a young man on X went and wrote, he was writing to the Vatican, and he wrote, "Dear Pontifex," that's talking to the sovereign pontiff, "while in Cameroon, you were offered a gift of 1.5 kilogram of gold worth $231,000 as of today. I am willing to travel to the Vatican to collect it back as my own share of the national wealth, which me and others have been deprived of. You don't need it. You don't need this." And he attached this letter I just read to you on this. In fact, this just tells you the frame of mind, the frame of mind of the people. So when they tell you that 10 billion CFA francs was spent to receive the Pope, my goodness, in Cameroon for 4 days, 10 billion. This is in a country where people do not have good roads. This is in a country where people do not have access to potable drinking water. This is in a country where electricity supply is horribly epileptic. This is in a country where telecommunications, that's talking about internet and law, is something horrible. We're talking here in a country where children in some localities are still sitting under thatches in the name of classrooms. This is in a country where people do not have access even to just generic drugs when they go to the hospitals. This is in a country where women will die in the hospitals during childbirth simply because in that hospital, or children will be born and die because they do not have oxygen, or they do not have incubators to put the children in. 10 billion. But you know what? What is amazing is that someone outside of Cameroon will hear this 10 billion and think that this is money they gathered and gave to the Pope. No, forget about it. They will tell you this money was used for projects meant to transform some cities or the cities where the Pope had to visit. Ask how much they spent at the Bamenda airport. How much you'll say they have spent in Bamenda trying to make the place pleasant for the Pope to visit. They will call you a figure that will make you skip at least 2 meals. Ask what happened in Douala. They will tell you you will be extremely embarrassed. Ask how much they claim to have spent in Yaoundé. You recall, there was a serious fight between the Minister of Housing and Urban Development and the government delegate to the Yaoundé City Council over who had the right to carry out projects relating to the Pope's visit. And the reason was simple: because of the money involved, because of the kickbacks involved, because of the level of embezzlement involved, because they knew that the money allocated, less than 1/5 of it will be used for the project. The rest would simply evaporate in thin air. So when they call 10 billion, trust me, I'm not sure up to 3 billion actually went for those preparations. The rest of the money was siphoned. And when Ferdinand Gongo asked for 1.5 kilograms of gold, trust me, I'm not sure he used up to half a kilogram of gold for whatever present they prepared to hand over to the Pope. That is Cameroon for you. That is really, really Cameroon for you. So like I said, the Pope has come and gone. But in Yaoundé, the disappointment is real. The benefit they thought they were going to tap from the Pope's presence was completely nothing compared to the damage they believe that the Pope caused with all the speeches and all the statements he made. Because they believe that he spent his time dishing out lessons on corruption, dishing out lessons on governance, condemning tyranny, especially when he said that a handful of tyrants have taken their peoples around the world hostage. He condemned also the misuse of the Bible or God's word to justify cruelty. He condemned governance which is not meant for the public good. There were just too many things he said. And he spent a lot of the time talking about the need for justice. Plus he released those 7 doves in Bamenda into freedom. So all of this make up what frustrated Mathias Eric Onangini to levels never before known. But you know, generally, in the Republic, they have seen what, the kind of blowback that other leaders, some leaders around the world received simply because they went after the Pope. And so they decided to, complain in silence, to grumble in their bedrooms, grumble perhaps in their beer parlors, but without the courage to come out there and say anything quite real. They also expected that this was going to be an opportunity for Frank Biya to shine. So they thought that they would use this opportunity, create some kind of rapprochement, but one of them said, one thing that amazed them is like, the Pope appeared to have avoided closeness to Paul Biya like a plague. And the high point of it is what I just pointed out. Him refusing to go for that private ceremony at the Unity Palace just to baptize the grandchild of Chantal Biya. Him refusing to find himself walking down to Paul Biya as if he were a king from the altar to go and give him communion. Those are some of the things that people say, but this we are not used to things like this. We expect that this man, Paul Biya, who is a demigod, ought to be deified. But what happened did not look very much like deification. And that is the thing they have refused to swallow. But all the same, the Pope came. He did what he did. And he made the statements that he made. And he left. And so, while there's a lot of talk now about what role Archbishop Andrew Nyih played, what he did or did not do, and all of those, that is now the aftermath. And like I said, we will have the opportunity to look at Andrew Nyih, the role he played for the Pope's visit, and in general, we will try to address a few issues that have come up more and more about Archbishop Andrew Nyih. Like I said, while there have been a lot of write-ups admiring his abilities, praising him for his astuteness and his determination, the focus with which he planned and successfully brought the Pope to Bamenda, to the southern Cameroons, some people feel that what he did, not only was it not enough, but it went contrary to what they consider the wishes and aspirations of the people, and so they even felt that it just needs to be kicked out, while others think that should be the next cardinal. We'll have the opportunity to look through that. I don't know exactly when, but somewhere this week, I will come to that. When I finish gathering the information I'm gathering on that, we will definitely anchor on that. So this communication was not meant to be long. I just wanted us to have, one last gentle laugh regarding the papal visit. So thank you very much for your kind attention. If this is the first time that you are visiting on this platform, please do not forget to hit that subscribe button and make sure to personalize so that whenever anything new drops here, you will be the first to know. And of course, it's traditional on this platform, I always say it, we share the links to the communication as much as we can, so we reach as many people as possible. And then, one other thing we do, we drop comments, we comment, we make sure we are actively part of the discussion, because this is about us all. This is about our freedom. This is about the liberation of the Southern Cameroons. This is about securing a better future for our children and our children's children, and for generations of Southern Cameroonians to come. So all hands have to be on deck. The only thing we do not accept on this platform is those messages that tend to insult people, tend to attack people, tend to demean or to denigrate people. No, if you do that kind of thing, I will delete that message. I promise that right in advance. So drop your comment. Make sure you are focusing on the issues. Make sure that you use beautiful language, the language of construction. Simply be concise and precise and hit it there and be part of the conversation. And then do not forget also to hit the like button. It generally goes a long way. So thank you very much for your very kind attention. I will be back. To God be the glory. Thank you for your very kind attention.
Je vous rappelle qu'il y a 40 ans, 42 ans, le président de la République, dès qu'il a eu son premier mandat, le 14 janvier 84, il a décidé qu'on n'est même plus, comment on appelle ça, République unie, on passe à République tout court, ce qui a soulevé la colère des anglophones. Parce qu'on était République du Cameroun, et puis le 14 janvier, non, on a été d'abord République du Cameroun. Ensuite, on a donc fait la réunification en 61, on est devenu République fédérale. Aïdjo supprime la fédération et on devient République unie. Mais Biya arrive au pouvoir et décide qu'on n'est même plus République unie, on est désormais République du Cameroun.
Coup d'État constitutionnel.
C'est un coup d'État.
Là encore, en 84.
Mais c'est un coup d'État. Comment vous étiez unis? C'est-à-dire qu'il y avait deux. Et puis un matin, tu reviens, tu dis que je ne veux plus ça.
De la fédération.
Une intégration, un réel divisé.
There is a total confusion in Cameroon, which has been associated with the visit of Pope Leo XIV. You see, one thing is clear, that somebody sabotaged the complete speech of the pontiff in Yaoundé. On the first day of the Pope's visit in Yaoundé, the Pope was giving his address to Cameroonians, responding to that of Cameroon's President Paul Biya. When he started his speech, it was flowing effectively. When he reached a critical point, pointing fingers about or challenging the Biya's government that has been in power for 40 years, almost living with a nation crumbled with insecurity in the northwest and southwest region. What others call it a major crisis. Some call it a war. Some call it the Anglophone debacle. The speech of the pontiff was cut short, and the national broadcaster, Cameroon's Radio's Television, CRTV, came out to say by their boss, Charles Ndongo, the Director General, said the reason why the sensitive part of the Pope's speech was left out, or why the broadcast ended, was due to optic fiber transmission. That the optic fiber transmission is the reason why at the Unity Palace, when the Pope made a very important point, it was stopped. Now, that finger pointing was directed to Cameroon's telecommunication network, which is charged with provision of optic fiber for the usage of CRTV in that ceremony. And the truth here is that Camtel would do anything and everything necessary within their power to make sure that the broadcast is not affected as a result of optic fiber transmission. also point of note is that as of now, and the time the speech was being made, Iran has not caught the optic fiber at the Strait of Hormuz. That we can accuse
woman, woman. A savior is a woman, woman, woman. A warrior is a woman, woman, woman. A savior is a woman. Bountiful, wonderful is her frame of mind. Beautiful, color.